Planning a romantic cruise for a third anniversary hadn't seemed like a bad idea. But when I discovered my best friend had been fucking with my husband, and in 10 minutes, they were going to throw me into the sea, it changed everything. I stood in the corridor outside the cabin, peering through the slightly open door. In the large vanity mirror, I saw their bodies tangled together, speaking truths that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, Tyler," Vivian purred, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "I knew you only married Renee for my sake. She's so utterly pathetic. Did you see the way she looked at you? Like some lovesick puppy." Tyler chuckled. "Like I could ever want anyone but you. Tell me I don't have to keep this up much longer." She giggled. They turned, her climbing on top of him. "Not much longer, once we get our hands on her fortune," she moaned, tilting her head back. I clenched my fists. Years of my life flashing through my mind. All I could think, see, hear, was her laughing, the little inconsistencies of my married life, the little things that had a seemingly innocent explanation. I felt like an idiot. But not for long. Before I could think, my hand was in her hair. She shrieked as I ripped her off Tyler and threw her to the ground. Then, I was on Tyler, striking him hard and fast in the face. He tried to dodge and tumbled out of bed as Vivian picked herself up. She broke off as I turned the light on. They were both frozen, staring at me. "I wonder what Dominic will think about all of this?" I asked. Dominic was Vivian's father, a highly respected and incredibly powerful alpha. Vivian was his most beloved daughter. But recently, I had heard some gossip. Vivian had been expelled from his pack by Dominic, and it had been upsetting her. That was why I invited her to join my cruise trip. Tyler flinched then. Vivian sneered. "As if you're going to get the chance." Danger screamed from the back of my mind. Tyler's eyes flashed, and all too quickly, he lunged across the bed at me. I swung, trying to fight him off. I caught him in the face and the gut, but Tyler had martial training that I didn't. He wrestled me into a headlock, his grip like iron, and lifted me, half carrying me. Choking me. Vivian laughed, wiggling her fingers with a mocking farewell as Tyler opened the balcony door. The cold wind over the sea rushed in around me. He slammed me back against the railing. Pain exploded across the back of my head, then the world tilted. I saw my feet above my head and his face flying away from me. I was falling, and Tyler was gone before the currents embraced me and dragged me under. The water filled my lungs, a burning, suffocating agony. I thrashed, but I had never learned to swim, and soon the sounds of the crashing waves and the thrum of the yacht's engine faded into the deep, cold, heavy darkness. Then, the weight started to lift and shift. A strange floating sensation took over, and I was drifting through air and time and space, bobbing along like a balloon. Suddenly, I was hovering above a crowded hall, the air thick with the buzz of voices and the flash of cameras. A press conference, looking up at a gigantic projection of a photo of my own face from the anniversary party. Tyler and Vivian stood on a raised platform with my father, Philip. Their faces were etched with practiced grief, but my father simply seemed reserved. I could practically hear his thoughts about the pack, his stance, and if that was not betrayal enough, Tyler and Vivian had the nerve to speak. "It's a tragic accident," Tyler said. "Renee. She must have slipped. We were so happy, celebrating our anniversary." Vivian dabbed at her eyes with a delicate lace handkerchief. "She was so full of life," she murmured, her voice trembling. "We'll miss her terribly." I glanced over at Dominic, his eyes red and downcast with grief that screamed into the air. It should have brought me some measure of peace that at least one person in my life would truly grieve me, especially a man like Dominic, powerful, wealthy, confident, and completely in control of himself. But it didn't. When Tyler and Vivian left the press conference, I was pulled along as if tethered to them by an invisible string. As soon as they got into the chauffeured car, they were laughing and kissing feverishly. "How much did you say it was?" Vivian purred. Renee was always tight-lipped about it. "I am the daughter of Alpha, and my mother brought a generous dowry. She left all those to me when she died." "A lot," he said. "But let's not talk about that right now. I'm more interested in christening Peacock Hollow." I lunged for him again. My hands passing through his neck again. If only I could rip it out. He drew her close. "It's ours now," she squealed. "I've never been, but I've seen the pictures. I can't wait to redo the garden." Peacock Hollow was my mother's estate. It was my private sanctuary where all of my memories of my mother still lived. They were headed to it, but I didn't need to follow them. I blinked and I was standing outside the warm little cottage, imagining them there defining every inch of my childhood the way they'd defiled my adulthood. The injustice was unbearable. Please. Then, everything went black. My eyes snapped open. I gasped, my lungs burning with the air of a warm, familiar room. I sat up, my heart pounding, my body trembling. Had it all been a dream? A nightmare? No. It was too vivid, too real. I remembered the cold, the darkness, the laughter. I remembered death. But I was alive. I looked around the room, recognizing it as a room in the Brightclaw estate, Dominic's incredibly lavish home which he'd offered as my wedding venue years ago. Every inch of it screamed of his effortless elegance and wealth. But this wasn't the room that I stayed in usually, yet it was still eerily familiar. No. Vivian shrieked, he can't bring her. Not to Renee's wedding. Those words were hauntingly familiar. I turned over, grabbing my phone and freezing at the sight of the date. 3 years before the night on the yacht. No. 3 years and a day. It was the day before my wedding. Was this real? I looked into the mirror searching for some sign that I hadn't been dreaming, that my mind wasn't just making things up. My reflection staring back at me. Aside from 3 years younger, there was nothing to see. Then, I saw it. A faint, shimmering mark, a crescent moon, nestled just above my heart. I gasped, my fingers tracing the delicate curve. The moon goddess had heard my plea, granted me a second chance. This wasn't a dream. This was a gift, a weapon, a chance to rewrite my destiny. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. I couldn't waste a moment. The first thing I had to do was stop the wedding. I fled from the room, my bare feet silent on the plush carpet. I rounded a corner, nearly tripping over my own feet and collided with a broad, solid, warm figure. Strong arms wrapped around me, steadying me and pulling me into a broad, heavily muscled chest. The familiar musky, delicious scent hit my nose as I realized my face was pressed against bare skin. My breath catching in my throat and I looked up. It was Dominic, wearing nothing but a partially open robe. I swallowed hard, my face burning as I stared up at Dominic. I couldn't help but trail the chiseled lines of his chest. My mouth went dry, and though I knew I shouldn't be staring, I couldn't help it. Seeing him again after 3 years should not have affected me so much, but the memories flooded back before I could stop them, setting a burning heat in my face I couldn't ignore and heat in my gut that I thought I had left behind all those years ago. The last time I had seen him, I had been 20, on a summer vacation with him and Vivian. I had spent that entire trip trying, and failing, to ignore my attraction to him. I was almost sure he'd noticed, but he had graciously not said a word. Honestly, it wasn't my fault. I had grown up hearing a lot about Alpha Dominic of Brightclaw, but meeting him and going on that trip with just him, Vivian and their pack security had put all the rumors to shame. He had been effortlessly charming, his presence commanding every room he entered. He was older, sophisticated, the kind of man who carried power with the ease of someone born to it. And I had been an idiot with a hopeless crush, sneaking glances at him when I thought no one was looking, blushing whenever he so much as spoke to me. Looking back, I wanted to cringe at myself. And if that wasn't bad enough, I had touched myself at night, thinking about him, nearly every night of the trip. It had been maddening. It had been exhilarating, and after saving Vivian's life and seeing the look of relief and barely restrained grief on his face, I had put those thoughts to bed. At least, I thought I had. The fact that my body was reacting to him like this now, that I was reacting to him like this, made me want to curl up and die on the spot. Goddess, how could I be so embarrassing, even now? I was almost 25 years old. And there were more important things to deal with than how hot Dominic was. Renee, he said, his voice deep and resonant. Are you all right? You seem agitated. Dominic raised an eyebrow, his piercing gaze scanning my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Ghost? Right. I was currently evading my untimely death at the hand of his daughter and his gamma. I cleared my throat. I need to speak with my father. It's urgent. Dominic tilted his head slightly, his sharp eyes studying me. Philip is likely getting ready for the confirmation ceremony tonight. His voice was calm, smooth, with an undercurrent of something unreadable. We were just going over the final details of what your marriage will mean for your birth pack. Is something wrong? Everything was wrong. The words pushed at my lips, but I held them back. My stomach twisted into a bitter knot. Of course, even now Philip was angling to get something else out of this deal. I knew my marriage would be a great thing for Philip's pack, but knowing what it would bring me, knowing that this was all just going to benefit everyone but me, made my pulse spike with anger. Tyler and I had been a political transaction, but not for Philip, and I had been too naive to see it before. Not this time. Is something wrong? Dominic watched me carefully, his expression unreadable. Can I help you? I hesitated. This was Dominic Brightclaw, a man powerful enough to command respect with a single look. He was offering to help me. 3 years ago, I would have melted at the idea of him paying me this much attention. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I had been murdered, and though he had seemed to truly grieve me, I couldn't trust him. I was back for justice. I could feel the mark on my chest almost burning. I wanted to tell him everything. The words sat heavy on my tongue, the truth claimed to be set free. Dominic was powerful, he could help me through the chaos that was about to unfold by the end of my engagement. He could keep Tyler away from me and deal with my father if I just managed to convince him. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, he let out a quiet chuckle. You know, he said, crossing his arms, out of all of Vivian's friends, you were always my favorite. I blinked. That was unexpected, and it warmed in ways I couldn't explain and had no business feeling right now. I wanted to offer my congratulations, he continued, his voice warm, as if this conversation was nothing more than a casual catch-up. Marriage is a big step. I hope it brings you happiness. He gave me a slow, thoughtful look. And if we're lucky, maybe seeing you married will finally push Vivian to settle down too. Something inside me went cold. Like a vision from the future, I could see her standing at the altar with Tyler, in a wedding dress paid for by my mother's stolen estate, maybe even on the steps of my sanctuary. I set my jaw at the thought and steeled my heart. How had I forgotten? Back in this time, Dominic still doted on Vivian. He still saw her as his sweet, spoiled little angel, not the woman he would later cut off completely. I never knew what had finally pushed him to sever ties with her in the future, but I did know that no matter what I said about Vivian now, he wouldn't believe me. Not yet. The path to showing him his daughter's true face and getting him to care was too long and too twisted to try to deal with now. I forced a small smile, even as my stomach churned. Vivian? Settling down? That'll be the day. Dominic laughed, a genuine, deep sound, and for a second, I glimpsed the version of him I had once admired. My heart fluttered a little. The heat of his body was making my heart race. I swallowed back the urge to speak, searching my mind for a way to get Dominic on my side. Philip's voice reached us before he even stepped into view. Renee, why aren't you dressed yet? The ceremony is about to start, and what groom wants to see his bride in a shabby state on such a day? I turned, and there he was, Philip, mostly dressed but still adjusting his cufflinks, his face already lined with irritation. Renee. Dominic's voice was quiet, but I could feel the weight of his attention on me. He had always been perceptive. He could see that something was wrong. I inhaled, lifted my chin and squared my shoulders. To answer your question, Dominic, everything is wrong, and yes, you can help me. Philip scoffed. If this is about a dress. I could care less about a dress, I said. He came to a halt. It must have been my tone that made him look so surprised. And it's better that the both of you are here when I say this, I'm not marrying Tyler. The words rang out, clear and final. Philip's eyes widened, then his expression turned into something angry. His eyes flashed with alpha light. Part of me almost flinched. His brows pulled together in confusion before his expression darkened. That's not funny. I'm not joking, I said, standing my ground. The wedding is off. Silence. Dominic's gaze flickered between us, his usual calm slipping into something more guarded. Philip, on the other hand, looked as if he would just as soon scream as punch me. Don't be stupid, Philip hissed. It's too late to cancel now. Philip exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple as if I were nothing but a headache. Canceling a wedding isn't child's play, Renee. Especially not for a family of our stature. How many times have I told you that you must consider the pack in all things, and your marriage, think of what it will look like. What it has already cost. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, not just because he was wrong. My marriage to Tyler was no more expensive than the gala that Breclaw often held for mingling and trades talks. It was cheaper actually, because I had made it so. Looking back, Tyler's praise of all of my frugality was just another slap in the face. He probably didn't want that much money spent out so that he could eventually have more of the wealth I stood to inherit to spend on Vivian and her whims. No. That was irritating, but the thing that really pissed me off was the fact that he, even now, was more concerned about saving his face than anything I might have to say. It's not as though I won't have plenty of money to pay back the costs in a few months' time. He set his jaw, glaring at me. Watch yourself, girl. I glared back. You haven't given me a good reason that I can't cancel my own marriage. He glanced at Dominic, who was still staring at me, peering through the things I wasn't saying right to my soul. It felt like I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to scream that if this wedding happened, I would die. That this marriage was nothing but a humiliating death sentence. But I couldn't. If I started talking about the future, they'd think I was crazy. So I swallowed the fury burning in my throat and forced my voice to remain even. It's at the least rushed. Dominic, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Tyler is the gamma of his pack. He's been a childhood playmate of Vivian's for years. He's a reliable person. The word stung. Reliable. For Vivian. I bit the inside of my cheek, searching for how to reply. You. Philip simply scoffed. You must be possessed, he muttered. Pre-mating jitters. Enough of this nonsense. You will be a good wife, Renee. They're expecting children. A cold chill ran through me. I felt like I was going to hurl right there. My hands trembled with the effort it took not to recoil at even the thought of one of Tyler's children growing in my body, probably with the same dishonest, traitorous disposition as its father. I'd rather fucking die. I snarled at him before I could stop it. You can stop the charade, Philip. He sputtered. You. That's all I've ever been to you. A means to an end. I lifted my chin, rage burning away my hesitation. A path to my mother's fortune, a path to elevate your little pack out of obscurity. You have always loved your face more than you loved me. Well, you're going to have to find another way to get that status you keep chasing. I'm not marrying Tyler. I narrowed my eyes. And you're the last person I want to hear from about being a good spouse. You couldn't even appreciate your own. Philip's face twisted with fury. His hand shot out, aiming to shove me back. I didn't draw back as his eyes filled with light and the air stirred. The hair on the back of my neck lifted. I braced for the compulsion, hoping to fight against it. But before he could touch me, before he could even speak, Dominic was between us. His arm came up in a single, fluid motion, catching Philip by the wrist. His grip was firm but effortless, as if restraining my father required no more effort than swatting away an insect. Are you out of your mind? Dominic's voice was sharp, quiet, but edged with something dangerous. Putting your hands on her? Philip's anger wavered, his mouth opening and closing as if trying to find the right excuse, but Dominic wasn't looking at him anymore. He was looking at me. His grip on my father didn't loosen, but his free hand came to rest at my back, drawing me subtly closer. To the delicious musky scent he radiated. Has he ever done this before? His voice was softer now, but the weight behind it was heavier. I barely heard Philip sputtering in the background, trying to assure Dominic that this was just a misunderstanding, that he would never, because I was too aware of Dominic's hand at my back, of the sheer warmth of his body so close to mine. His scent wrapped around me, dark and rich, something deep and undeniably male. It was grounding. Comforting. And that was dangerous. And an opportunity. Philip loved the idea of climbing the rungs of society too much to ever listen to me. If I wanted to get out of this marriage, I would have to escape now or get Dominic to intercede. Running wasn't an option, so I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to push away the distraction of Dominic's presence, the way his voice curled around my name like something meant to shield me. Philip was still talking, still trying to explain himself. I would never lay a hand on my daughter, he insisted, his voice almost wheedling now. You misunderstand, Dominic. This is a family matter. Dominic finally let go of Philip's wrist, stepping fully between us, a wall of unshakable steel. I'll be the judge of that, he said smoothly. After I speak with Renee. Alone. Philip hesitated, his jaw working as if weighing his options. Finally, he exhaled sharply, turning back toward me. Alpha Dominic, if you can speak some sense into her, you know how emotional women her age are. I've always found Renee to be quite level-headed, even in her passion. Philip seemed stunned, and my stomach jolted at Dominic's words. Philip glared at me, then turned and walked away. Dominic placed his hand on my back and steered me into one of the empty parlors. The heavy wooden doors clicked shut behind us, sealing us away from the rest of the house, the rest of the world. He turned to me, arms crossing over his broad chest, assessing me in that unreadable way of his. All right. We're alone now. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Tell me the real reason. I swallowed. He wouldn't believe me if I told him the truth, but I had to tell him something he would believe. So, I took a breath and leaned into what I knew was already simmering in his mind, the suspicion that my father was abusive. I let my shoulders curl in slightly, my gaze dropping. Philip has never seen me as his daughter. Not really. I've always been a chess piece. I scoffed. A pawn. That's all I've ever been to him. Dominic's golden eyes pinned me in place, unreadable and sharp. That may be true, he murmured. But that's not what sent you running down the hall just now. I scrambled for something to say, something to divert his attention, but he was already too close, already closing in on me with the quiet intensity that made my pulse hammer. His scent filled my nose, sending warmth curling through my stomach despite myself. And then, a reckless idea struck me. It was risky. Dangerous. But at this point, it was the only option I had. Before I could think too much about it, I rose up on my toes, grabbed the front of Dominic's robe and kissed him with everything I had. I expected him to push me off, to sputter and yell at me, but he didn't. Dominic groaned into my mouth, the sound sending a hot thrill down my spine. He kissed me back, fiercely, deeply, like he was starving to taste me, his hands clenched at my waist, pressing me flush against him as if he couldn't get enough. He turned us, marching me back towards the door, never breaking contact. My back hit the door with a soft thud, and the heat of him surrounded me. He was everywhere. His hands were everywhere. His lips parted mine, his tongue sliding against mine in a way that made my toes curl. His hands roamed, fingers pressing into my hips, trailing up my ribs, slipping into my hair as he kissed me like a man starved. And goddess, I wanted to drown in it. Tyler had never kissed me like this, and he was the only man I had ever kissed. My fingers dug into the hard muscles of his shoulders, clinging to him, needing more. I could feel the hard line of his erection pressing hot and needy against my stomach. I moaned as the contact sent a zing of awareness and desire through me. Then, as suddenly as it started, Dominic pulled back with a sharp inhale, as if realizing something all at once. I didn't let him go far. I've always had a crush on you, I whispered breathlessly. The words tumbled out without hesitation. It wasn't exactly the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. At one point in my life, I had been captivated by him, by his quiet strength and maturity. But if I wanted to gain his sympathy, to get him on my side, it was the best chance I had right now. His hands, which had been possessively gripping my waist just moments ago, went slack. He took a full step back. His eyes were glowing and flickered with something unreadable, shock, disbelief, something else. His gaze darted over my face like he was searching for something, like he wanted to say something. But then, he exhaled, jaw tightening. He turned away from me, running a hand through his hair. His voice was rough, unsteady. I don't know what came over me. Panic struck me. That shouldn't have happened. His tone was firmer now, like he was trying to convince himself as much as he was trying to convince me. I only realized how I really felt when I saw you in the hallway, I said softly, taking a step closer to him. But I just can't marry him. He didn't turn back to face me. Instead, he exhaled slowly, like he was trying to regain control of himself, and after a long pause, he murmured, I need to go. Dominic's rejection hit me like a physical blow, the sting of it was sharper than I'd expected. He stood a few feet away from me, his posture cold and distant, as though the man who had kissed me moments ago never existed. I could never be with a woman young enough to be my daughter, Renee, he said, his voice low, almost regretful. You're too young. You're like a daughter to me, Renee. I took a step closer to him, hearing the regret in his voice. Was that longing? No, probably not, but he was at least lying, and that was enough of an opportunity for me. The way you kiss me says otherwise, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. Clearly, you find me attractive. Dominic's eyes flickered, but he quickly looked away. It was a mistake, he said, his words colder now, like ice. I wasn't thinking. It shouldn't have happened. I'm not interested in you, Renee. I swallowed the lump in my throat. He could lie to himself all he wanted, but his body had told a different story. The way his lips had claimed mine, the heat that had simmered between us, he was interested. But it wasn't a good idea to push him on that. But I could use this as an opening. He turned to leave, reaching for the door, but I didn't move, placing my hand on the doorknob. I want to cash in my wish, I said, the words out before I could second-guess them. Dominic stilled and still didn't look at me, and I could feel the tension radiating from him even from across the room. I'll grant your wish, he said slowly, his voice almost wary. But it can't include me, Renee. I stepped closer to him, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not asking to be with you, I said, my voice soft yet firm. I'm just asking for an exit. A way out. Something that lets me still have a chance to be by your side. Dominic was silent for a long moment. I could almost feel the weight of his internal struggle, the way his mind was working through my request. Then, he shook his head. It's not my business, he finally said. You'll have to think of something else. But whatever you choose, you need to pull yourself together. Your confirmation ceremony is in just an hour or so. You still need to get ready. With that, he nudged me aside and left. Frustration churned in my gut as Dominic's words echoed in my head. He just as good as said he wasn't going to help me get out of this, but that wasn't the whole truth, was it? He had been attracted to me, kissing me like that, running. Still wasn't an option, but Dominic's feelings, even if they were fleeting, wouldn't be put to rest easily. Even if they weren't the romantic ones. I bit my lip, chasing the taste of him, and left the room, heading back to the room I had woken up in. Dominic had come to my aid against Philip because he'd looked like he would hit me. He'd help me if I seemed in real danger, but what could I even do to get that to happen? Philip was too much of a schemer to try to strike me in public, let alone reveal that he used the alpha compulsion on me. It would have to be Tyler to make a scene, but how was I going to manage that with Vivian's leash around his neck? I shut the door behind me and paced, glancing at the clock. I didn't have a lot of time to throw together a plan. I couldn't remember if there was anything at this time that I could use to provoke Tyler. The door opened, and a nervous maid entered the room. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. Lady Renee. There's something I need to tell you. In private. I promise it will only take a moment. This woman was the same one who had visited my room in my past life right after the confirmation ceremony. She'd told me about the lace panties that had been found in Tyler's inner breast pocket. I'd brushed it off then, but not this time. I had a plan. I descended the grand staircase, my red dress flowing around me like a wave of molten lava, cinched tight and clinging to every curve. I caught a glimpse of Vivian's face as I walked down, her lips pressing into a thin line, her eyes flashing with jealousy. Tyler stood near the buffet table, surrounded by a group of friends, looking every bit the handsome, charming man he pretended to be. As soon as he saw me, his eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, he was stunned. His jaw dropped. He gave me a heated look and a smile. It made me sick. I stopped in the middle of the floor and he came toward me. Renee. You. I raised a hand, and the music screeched to a halt. The entire room seemed to freeze and turn to look at us. Tyler's expression faltered, and I knew he was already feeling the heat of the moment. Tyler, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. You should come clean now. He blinked, his facade faltering for just a split second. What are you talking about? His voice was strained, but he quickly masked it with a practiced nonchalance. Empty your pockets. I glared at him. Now. A tense silence filled the space between us as Tyler hesitated. The people around us began to murmur, unsure of what was going on. He shifted uncomfortably. Renee. Before he could react, I darted forward. Tyler tried to pull away, but I was quicker. In a single motion, I yanked open his jacket, shoved my hand in his inner breast pocket and pulled out the familiar red, limited edition, lace underwear. I twirled them on my finger, high enough for everyone to see. The movement sent the scent of sex and perfume through the air. It made my stomach turn, but everyone in the hall was looking at us now. I met his gaze. The room went completely silent, the air thick with tension. I recognized them immediately as Vivian's. I had been in the fucking shop when she bought them and they were the same shade of red as my dress. Tyler's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing as he scrambled for words, but I didn't give him the chance. I gave you the chance to be honest, I said, my voice low and filled with venom. I even gave you the opportunity to save face, but you didn't take it. Renee. Save it, I said. The wedding is off, you cheating bastard. The murmurs around me shifted into a low buzz as Tyler's embarrassment was replaced with anger. His face flushed crimson. Just as I thought I had gained some support from the crowd, Vivian stood up, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. She laughed. Really, Renee? Tyler's bachelor party was last night, Vivian said, her tone dismissive and smooth. It didn't mean anything. You're being petty, Renee. The crowd hesitated, their uncertain whispers now turning into nods of agreement. The sheep of the upper echelons of werewolf society would always fall behind the Brightclaw princess, but I wasn't going to let her get out of this easily. I didn't see Dominic in the hall. I had to keep it going until he arrived. You think a bachelor's party is an excuse for cheating? Vivian smirked, her eyes glinting with malicious satisfaction. You're just embarrassing yourself, you know? Not even married yet and you're showing how jealous you are, she continued, her voice dripping with sweetness. Or are you saying I would introduce you to a cheater? Considering she didn't even have the sense to change perfume between their tryst and now it was ridiculous how no one even questioned it. His bachelor party was several days ago, I said. And these are too expensive for a stripper hired for a bachelor party, I said, holding up the lace underwear for all to see. The perfume is too expensive too, you should know since you wear it, too. A tense silence fell over the crowd, and I could see the realization start to creep into their eyes that I knew. But Tyler, ever the liar, tried to maintain his grip on the narrative. He scoffed, his face twisted in defensiveness. And you? He narrowed his eyes. You never wear lipstick and your lips look swollen. You must have cheated on me with someone else, and now you're using this pathetic excuse to back out of our marriage. Before I could respond, Philip's voice rang out, heavy and commanding. Enough, he hissed, breaking through the crowd. He turned to me, his eyes flashing with fury. How many people are you trying to make a joke of, Renee? You. Silence. I felt the pressure of his alpha compulsion seep into my bones, like a heavy weight shutting my mouth. My body grew stiff, my breath coming in shallow gasps as his power pressed against me. I tried to fight it, but it was like trying to stand against a storm. Vivian's voice cut through the tension like a dagger, her tone biting and cruel. She has to be cheating, she sneered. As if she could do better than Tyler. I always said you weren't as smart as people thought you were. Philip stormed towards me, grabbing my arm, yanking and bruising me. Who have you slept with? Tell the truth. The pressure of Philip's compulsion wrapped around me like a vice, but I grinned, baring my teeth and staring at Tyler. I haven't slept with anyone, I said, loudly, glad that everyone could see that I was under compulsion so they couldn't just assume I was lying about it. Not even Tyler. Vivian flushed. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, and Tyler's face flushed with deep crimson, his embarrassment clear for all to see. I knew from the future that he'd been telling people that we'd already slept together before we were married. Philip, seemingly satisfied with my admission, grinned. His tone became almost fatherly as he addressed the crowd and let me go. Well, that clears things up, doesn't it? Renee is clearly not cheating. Now, let's move on with the ceremony. He leaned closer, his voice sharp and heavy. Get to the fucking altar with Tyler, and not a word but I do. He released me then. I felt like I was walking through molasses as I made my way toward the altar, my feet heavy with the weight of the compulsion. I looked around, searching for Dominic, but he wasn't there. Where was he? I tried to slow down, but it wasn't working. My body moved on its own. Vivian's eyes glinted with annoyance, her irritation palpable as she looked toward Tyler's parents, who were already murmuring about how great it was that Tyler would have a virgin bride. Embarrassment swept through me, but it was beat out by my desperation. The force of Philip's compulsion, the weight of their eyes on me, the relentless march toward a fate I had no power to change, it was too much. I could barely keep my head above the rising tide of panic. Tyler's smug expression did nothing but fuel the fire of my fury. I wanted to claw his face off. I'd kill him before he could kill me, even if that had to be tonight. We got to the altar together, and the priest started talking. I tried to keep my hands away, refusing to participate when Philip growled again. Put your hands out and bare your neck. I swore. My neck cracked under the force of his command. My eyes burned as I glared at Tyler. My heart hammered. I wouldn't close my eyes, I wouldn't turn away as he leaned in, mouth open to mark me. Enough. Dominic's voice rang out across the room, sharp and commanding, slicing through the tension like a knife. His hand clamped around my arm, firm but gentle, and pulled me away from Tyler as he snarled. The wedding is cancelled.